My name is Adriana Martinez. I'm 32 years old, and for 5 years I tried to become a mother. 5 years of negative pregnancy tests. 5 years of doctor appointments, fertility treatments, hormones that made me feel like a stranger in my own body. 5 years of watching my friends announce pregnancies on social media while I smiled and congratulated them, then cried alone in my car afterward. But the worst part? The miscarriages, 3 of them. 3 times I saw that positive test and allowed myself to hope. 3 times I felt life beginning inside me, only to have it torn away. The last one was the hardest. I made it to 12 weeks. We'd told our families. I'd started looking at nursery furniture. I'd let myself believe that this time would be different. It wasn't. After that 3rd loss, the doctors sat us down, me and my husband Marcus, and delivered the news that shattered what was left of my hope. Severe uterine scarring from the miscarriages, diminished ovarian reserve, a less than 2% chance of ever carrying a pregnancy to term. You should consider adoption, the specialist said gently. Or perhaps surrogacy. I nodded numbly, holding Marcus's hand. He squeezed my fingers, but I could feel the distance already forming between us. This fertility journey had taken everything from our marriage, our savings, our intimacy, our joy. We were more like roommates than spouses, held together by shared trauma and the ghost of the family we'd never have. That night, I sat in what was supposed to be the nursery, just an empty room with pale yellow walls we'd painted 3 years ago, full of hope. I stared at those walls and felt completely hollow. Marcus appeared in the doorway. We should think about what the doctor said. Adoption could be, I don't want to adopt someone else's child, I said, my voice flat. I want my own baby. Our baby. Is that so wrong? No, but Adri, we can't keep doing this. It's destroying us. I know. Maybe we need to accept that this isn't meant to be. Those words hung in the air like a death sentence. I looked at my husband and saw what I'd been refusing to see for months. He'd already given up. He'd moved on emotionally while I was still desperately clinging to a dream that was killing me. I need some air, I said, standing up. It's almost midnight. I don't care. I grabbed my coat and walked out into the cold February night. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just walked, letting my feet carry me through our quiet suburban neighborhood while tears streamed down my face. I ended up at St. Catherine's Church. I'm not particularly religious. I was raised Catholic, went to church as a kid, but I drifted away in college. Still, something drew me to that building. Maybe it was the light glowing warmly through the stained glass windows. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the last place I could think of to take my pain. The main doors were locked, but the side entrance was open. I slipped inside. The church was empty, lit only by votive candles and the soft glow from the altar. It was peaceful in a way my life hadn't been in years. I slid into a pew near the back and just sat there, breathing in the silence. Are you all right? I jumped at the voice. A man had appeared from a side door, young, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He wore the black shirt and white collar of a priest. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I didn't mean to intrude. The door was open and I needed somewhere quiet. You're not intruding. That's what this place is for. He gestured to the pew. May I? I nodded, and he sat down a respectful distance away. I'm Father Christian, he said. Father Chris, if you prefer. Are you a parishioner here? No, I live nearby, but I'm not very religious. That's okay. God doesn't check attendance records. He smiled, and it was so genuine that I felt something in my chest loosen slightly. Do you want to talk about what brought you here at midnight, or would you prefer to just sit in the quiet? I should have said I wanted quiet. Should have thanked him and left. Instead, I started talking. My husband and I have been trying to have a baby for 5 years, I heard myself say. 3 miscarriages. Today the doctor told me it's probably never going to happen, and I don't know how to accept that. I don't know how to let go of something I've wanted my entire life. Father Chris was quiet for a moment, and I appreciated that he didn't immediately jump in with platitudes or religious comfort. When he did speak, his voice was soft. I'm truly sorry. That kind of repeated loss, it's devastating. Everyone keeps telling me things like, it's God's plan, or everything happens for a reason, or maybe you meant to adopt. And I know they mean well, but it just makes me feel like I'm being selfish for grieving something I never actually had. You're not selfish, he said firmly. You're grieving the future you'd imagined, the child you'd hoped for. That grief is real and valid, regardless of what anyone tells you. I looked at him, surprised. That's not very priest-wise. He laughed a warm, real laugh. I'm a priest, not a robot. I am allowed to acknowledge that life can be cruel and painful and that sometimes there are uneasy answers. Do you think it's God's plan that I can't have children? Honestly? I don't know. I don't think God micromanages every detail of our lives like some cosmic puppet master. I think sometimes bodies just don't work the way we want them to, and it's nobody's fault. It's just heartbreaking. I found myself crying then, really crying. Not the quiet tears I'd been holding back all day, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere ancient inside me. And this priest I just met didn't flinch or look uncomfortable. He just handed me tissues from his pocket and let me fall apart. When I finally caught my breath, I felt emptied out but somehow lighter. Thank you, I whispered, for not telling me it's all part of some plan I'm too small to understand. Would you like me to pray with you? He asked. Not for a miracle or for things to be different than they are, just for peace, for the strength to face tomorrow. I nodded. He didn't recite some formal prayer. He just spoke, simply and honestly, asking for comfort for me, for my husband, for all the people carrying impossible grief. His words were so genuine, so human, that I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope for a baby necessarily. Just hope that maybe I could survive this. That maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt. Thank you, Father Chris, I said when he finished. Would it help to come back? Sometimes grief is easier to carry when you have a place to set it down regularly. Maybe, yes, Wednesday evenings. I'm here for anyone who needs to talk. No appointment necessary. You could come if you wanted. I left the church that night feeling like I'd been given permission to grieve, like my pain mattered to someone, even a stranger. I had no idea that walking through those doors would change everything. That Father Chris would become the most important person in my life. Or that the miracle I'd stopped believing in was waiting just around the corner in the most complicated, beautiful, impossible way. I went back the following Wednesday. I told myself it was just for the peace and quiet of the church, for a place to process my feelings without Marcus's well-meaning but suffocating attempts to fix things. But if I'm being honest, it was also because Father Chris had listened in a way no one else had. He was there when I arrived, sitting in the same pew where we'd met. When he saw me, his face lit up with genuine warmth. You came back. You said Wednesdays were open. They are. I'm glad you're here. We talked for an hour that first Wednesday. Not about religion really, but about life. About grief and marriage and the weight of unfulfilled longing. He shared too, not about romantic relationships, obviously, but about his own struggles with his calling, moments of doubt, the loneliness that sometimes came with his vocation. People think priests have all the answers, he said. But most days I'm just as confused as everyone else. I just try to show up and be present. Thank you. That means a lot. The next Wednesday I came again. And the Wednesday after that. It became a routine every week. I'd finish work, drive to St. Catherine's, and spend an hour or two talking with Father Chris in that quiet church. We prayed together, but not always. Sometimes we just talked. He told me about his childhood in Vermont, about the brother he'd lost to cancer at age 15, about how that loss had led him to the priesthood. I told him about my strict Catholic upbringing, my mother's disappointment that I'd stopped going to church, the pressure I felt from both our families about having children. Your worth isn't determined by your ability to reproduce, he said during one of those conversations. I know your family might not see it that way, but it's true. Do you really believe that? Absolutely. You're a complete person exactly as you are. No one had said that to me in 5 years. Everyone, doctors, family, even Marcus, talked about me like I was broken, incomplete, a problem to be solved. But Father Chris saw me as whole. By the 3rd month, I realized I was looking forward to Wednesdays more than anything else in my week. More than date nights with Marcus, which had become stiff, obligatory affairs. More than girls' nights with friends, where someone inevitably announced a pregnancy. Wednesday evenings with Father Chris were where I felt most myself. How are things with Marcus? He asked one evening in late May. I hesitated. We talked about my marriage before, but always in general terms. This felt different, more personal. Distant, I finally admitted. We're basically strangers living in the same house. We're kind to each other, but there's no connection anymore. Have you tried counseling? We did for a few months. It helped temporarily, but then we just fell back into the same patterns. I paused, afraid to say it out loud. I think he's given up. On the baby, on us, on everything. He's just going through the motions. And you? Have you given up? On the baby? On my marriage? I looked at Father Chris, at his kind eyes and patient expression. I don't know anymore. There was a long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was careful. Adriana, I want you to know that these conversations, they mean a great deal to me. You've reminded me why I became a priest. To help people, to be present in their pain, to witness their journeys. It means a lot to me too, I said quietly. But I think it's important that we maintain appropriate boundaries. Not because I don't care, but because I do. Does that make sense? My heart sank. Was he ending our Wednesday meetings? Are you saying I shouldn't come anymore? No, he said quickly. Not at all. I just want to make sure we're both clear about what this is. I'm your priest, your spiritual advisor. You're someone I care about deeply as a member of my community. But those roles are important to maintain. Of course, I said, feeling embarrassed. I never thought, I know you're a priest. I know, I'm not accusing you of anything inappropriate. I'm just being cautious. But here's the thing about caution. Sometimes stating it out loud makes you both hyper-aware of exactly why caution is needed. After that conversation, I noticed things I'd been trying not to notice. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. How he had this habit of running his hand through his hair when he was thinking deeply. The warmth in his voice when he said my name. The way my heart rate picked up when I walked into the church and saw him waiting. And I noticed how he looked at me too. Not in any inappropriate way. Father Chris was nothing if not professional. But there was something in his gaze sometimes, a softness and attention that went beyond pastoral care. We were both so careful, so proper. We never touched except for brief handshakes at the end of our meetings. We never met anywhere except the church. We kept our conversations focused on my healing, my faith journey, my marriage. But underneath all that care and propriety, something was growing. Something neither of us was ready to name. In early June, after one of our Wednesday sessions, I did something impulsive. Instead of asking him to pray for peace or strength, I asked him to pray for a baby. He looked surprised. I thought you'd made peace with that not happening. I have, mostly, but I was thinking, you said God doesn't micromanage everything. But maybe some things are possible if we just ask. And you've prayed for so many people. Maybe if you prayed for me specifically for this one thing. I trailed off feeling foolish. Of course I'll pray for that, he said gently. But Adriana, I don't want you to get your hopes up. I'm not a miracle worker. I know. I need to try one more thing before I completely let go. So he prayed. He placed his hands on my shoulders, the most contact we'd ever had, and prayed for my body to heal, for life to take root, for the miracle of a child. His hands were warm through the fabric of my blouse. I closed my eyes and felt the sincerity in his words, the genuine hope he was asking for on my behalf. When he finished, I opened my eyes to find him looking at me with such tenderness that my breath caught. Thank you, I whispered. I'll keep praying, he promised. Every day. I left the church that night feeling something dangerous blooming in my chest. Something that had nothing to do with babies or miracles or healing. I was falling for my priest. And God help me, I think he was falling for me too. Marcus and I hadn't been intimate in months. Our marriage had dissolved into polite cohabitation, separate bedrooms, separate lives, held together only by shared bills and the social expectation that you don't just give up on marriage without really trying. But in late June, After a family wedding where we were forced to play the happy couple for his relatives, something shifted. Maybe it was the champagne or the romantic atmosphere or just the muscle memory of who we used to be. We ended up in the same bed that night for the first time in half a year. It was awkward and emotionally empty, more about physical need than connection. Afterward, we both rolled to opposite sides of the bed without speaking. In the morning, we went back to our separate routines like nothing had happened. I didn't think anything of it. After 5 years of trying, 5 years of timed intercourse and fertility calendars in desperation, one random night without any planning seemed cosmically unlikely to matter. But 6 weeks later, I was late. I didn't want to hope. Couldn't let myself hope. I'd been late before, had false alarms, had gotten my hopes up only to have them crushed. So I waited another week before buying a pregnancy test, and even then, I took it with the resigned expectation that it would be negative. I peed on the stick, set it on the bathroom counter, and walked away. I couldn't watch. Couldn't stare at that blank window, willing it to show me what I'd been denied so many times. 5 minutes later, I forced myself to look. 2 lines. Pregnant. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the lines to fade, for my eyes to be playing tricks, for reality to reassert itself, but they stayed. 2 solid, unmistakable lines. I took 3 more tests, all positive. I sat on the bathroom floor, holding those positive tests, and felt absolutely nothing. No joy, no excitement, no relief, just numb, terrified to feel anything because feeling meant hoping, and hope was the thing that had hurt me most. Adri? Marcus knocked on the bathroom door. You okay? I opened the door and handed him the test without a word. His eyes went wide. Are these positive? All of them. For a moment I saw something flicker across his face, surprise, maybe even happiness. But then caution took over, the same caution I was feeling. Should we call the doctor? He asked carefully. Yeah, I'll make an appointment. We stood there in awkward silence, both of us afraid to celebrate, afraid to believe this could be real. Adriana, he said softly, this could be it. This could actually happen. Or I could lose it again. Like the other 3 times. Don't think like that. I have to think like that. I can't survive another loss if I let myself believe this is real. He pulled me into a hug, and I let him, but I felt distant from my own body. This should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, I felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The first person I wanted to tell wasn't Marcus. It was Father Chris. I showed up at the church that Wednesday like always, but this time I was carrying news that felt too big to contain. Father Chris was in his usual spot, reading from his worn Bible. When he saw me, he smiled, that smile that had become the brightest part of my week. Adriana, how are you? I'm pregnant. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. His eyes widened, and for a moment, pure joy crossed his face. What? That's when did you find out? This week. I'm about 6 weeks along. I haven't even seen a doctor yet, but 4 tests were positive. He stood up, his book forgotten. Adriana, that's incredible. That's a miracle. Is it you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Is it because you prayed? He looked taken aback. I don't think it works like that. But you did pray. Every day you said, and now I'm pregnant. Against all odds, after being told it was basically impossible, I'm pregnant. God answers prayers in mysterious ways, he said carefully. But Adriana, you know that medical miracles happen. Bodies heal. Sometimes what doctors say is impossible becomes possible. After 1 month of you praying for me, after 5 years of nothing, we stared at each other, and I saw him wrestling with something, belief, doubt, something else I couldn't name. Whether it's a miracle or coincidence or just good timing, he finally said, I'm grateful. I'm so happy for you. Are you? I asked, really? Of course, why wouldn't I be? Because you're the person I think about when I wake up. When I wake up. Because Wednesdays with you matter more than my actual marriage. Because every prayer you've said for me has felt like an intimate act, and now we're talking about a baby that might exist because of those prayers. But I couldn't say any of that out loud. I'm scared, I admitted instead. Terrified that I'll lose this one too. Then I'll pray for this baby every day, he said. For health, for strength, for safe arrival. You won't go through this alone. He reached out and took my hands, something he'd only done once before, during that first prayer. His hands were warm and steady, and I held onto them like a lifeline. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. For being here. For believing when I couldn't. Of course. We stayed like that for a long moment, hands clasped, standing in the quiet church. Anyone walking in would have seen a priest comforting a parishioner. But I felt the current running between us, the thing we weren't naming, growing stronger with every passing week. I was pregnant with my husband's child. But the person I wanted beside me through this journey wasn't Marcus. It was the priest who'd prayed me into this miracle, and that realization should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The pregnancy held. First ultrasound at 8 weeks, heartbeat strong. Second at 12 weeks, healthy, developing normally. Each milestone I'd never reached before, I was reaching now. The medical staff called it unexpected but wonderful. My mother called it a blessing from God. Marcus called it a second chance for our marriage. But I knew what it really was. It was Father Chris's miracle. I started seeing him more than just Wednesdays. I'd stop by the church before work to light a candle. During lunch breaks, I'd sit in the quiet sanctuary and pray or just think. And he'd find me there, sitting in our pew, and we'd talk. How are you feeling? Became his standard greeting. At first, I'd give medical updates. Morning sickness, manageable. Fatigue, constant. Doctor appointments, all positive. But gradually, those conversations became more personal. Marcus is excited, I told him during my 16th week. He's already planning the nursery, buying baby books, talking about names. That's wonderful, Father Chris said. But something in his voice sounded hollow. Is it? Because it feels like he's excited about the idea of a baby, not about me. He hasn't asked how I'm feeling beyond the medical stuff. Hasn't noticed that I'm terrified every single day that I will lose this baby like I lost the others. Have you told him that? I've tried. But Marcus deals with fear by planning and controlling what he can. I deal with it by, I don't know, coming here, talking to you. Father Chris was quiet for a moment. We were sitting in the church garden, a small courtyard behind the building where parishioners could sit among flowering plants and statues of saints. It was private, peaceful, and had become one of our favorite spots. Adriana, he said carefully, I want to support you through this pregnancy. I want to be here for you, but I'm also aware that I'm becoming perhaps too involved. My heart sank. Are you saying I shouldn't come anymore? No. I'm saying we need to be careful. You're married. You're carrying your husband's child. And I'm a priest. The time we spend together, the conversations we have, they're wonderful, but they're also dangerous. I finished. He met my eyes. Yes, dangerous. Because you care about me. Because I care about you more than I should. The admission hung between us like a physical thing. Neither of us moved. A breeze rustled through the garden, carrying the scent of jasmine. I care about you too, I whispered. More than I should. I know. So what do we do? Father Chris stood up, pacing to the small fountain in the center of the courtyard. When he spoke, his back was to me. I pray every night for this baby, for a healthy delivery, for your safety, for this child to be a blessing in your life. But lately, my prayers have become complicated. How? He turned to face me. Because I find myself hoping I'll have some role in this child's life. That maybe I could baptize them, watch them grow up, be present at their milestones. And that hope is selfish and inappropriate because this isn't my child. This isn't my family. I'm just the priest who prayed for a miracle. You're not just anything, I said, standing up. You're the person who gave me hope when I had none. You're the person who sees me, really sees me when my own husband looks through me. Don't, he said, his voice pained. Please don't finish that sentence. We stood there, 10 feet apart in the garden, both of us knowing exactly what I'd been about to say. You're the person I'm falling in love with. I should go, I finally said. Probably, but neither of us moved. Adriana, when this baby is born, I think we need to create some distance. For both our sakes. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're saying goodbye? I'm saying that right now you need me because you're scared and alone in this pregnancy. But once the baby arrives, you'll have your family, your child, a new focus. And I need to step back before I become something I can't be for you. Tears streamed down my face. What if I don't want you to step back? Then we're both in trouble, he said quietly. Because I don't want to either. I tried to stay away. For 3 weeks, I didn't go to the church. I focused on my pregnancy, on Marcus, on preparing for the baby. I told myself Father Chris was right. We needed distance before something happened that we couldn't take back. But at 7 months pregnant, swollen and uncomfortable and terrified, I found myself back at St. Catherine's on a Wednesday evening. Father Chris was there, as if he'd been waiting. Adriana, relief flooded his face when he saw me. I was worried. I tried to stay away. I know. So did I. He gestured to the pew. But every Wednesday at 6, I'm here. Just in case. I sat down heavily, my belly making everything awkward. I can't do this without you. I've tried. But Marcus is excited about being a father, not about being my partner. My mother is excited about being a grandmother, but she doesn't ask how I'm feeling. Everyone is focused on this baby, but no one sees me. I see you, he said softly. I know. That's why I'm here. He reached out and for the first time placed his hand on my belly. I froze, both of us aware of how intimate the gesture was. May I? He asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The baby kicked against his palm, as if recognizing something. Father Chris's eyes widened with wonder. That's incredible, he breathed. They're very active, especially at night. He kept his hand there for a long moment, and I watched emotions play across his face, joy, longing, pain, something deeper I couldn't name. This baby is blessed, he finally said. They're going to be so loved, because of you, because you prayed them into existence. I don't think it works like that, don't you? 5 years of nothing, 1 month of your prayers. Then this, I placed my hand over his, still resting on my belly. I don't care what's medically possible or impossible. This is your miracle, ours, he corrected quietly. If it's anyone's miracle, it's ours. The word ours hung between us, heavy with implications. Father Chris, Christian, he interrupted. When we're alone, call me Christian. Christian, I repeated, and even saying his name felt like crossing a line. What are we doing? I don't know. But I know that when I pray now, I don't just pray for the baby. I pray for you, for your happiness, for your marriage to heal, for you to have everything you deserve. And what if what I deserve isn't what I have? He pulled his hand away from my belly as if burned. Don't. Why not? We're both dancing around this. We both feel it. Why can't we acknowledge what's happening between us? Because I'm a priest. Because you're married. Because this is impossible. So was this pregnancy. And yet here we are. He stood up, running his hands through his hair in frustration. Adriana, I have dedicated my life to God. I took vows of celibacy, of service, of devotion. Those vows mean something, I know, but every day I find myself wanting to break them. For you. And that terrifies me because I don't know who I am without those vows. I stood up as well, as much as my pregnant body would allow. I'm not asking you to break anything. I'm just asking you to be honest about what this is. What is it then? Tell me, because I don't have words for what I feel when you walk into this church. For what it means to me that I get to witness this pregnancy, this miracle. For how much I want to be there when this baby is born, even though I have no right to be. It's love, I said simply. We're in love with each other. And we can't do anything about it, but we can at least stop pretending it's not real. The silence that followed felt eternal. You're right, Christian finally said. I love you. God help me. I'm completely in love with you. And it's the most wonderful and terrible thing I've ever felt. I love you too. We stood there, two people who'd just confessed what should never be spoken, and I waited for lightning to strike or the ground to open up. But nothing happened. The world kept turning. The baby kept growing inside me. I can't act on this, Christian said. You know that, right? I can't leave the priesthood, can't be with you, can't be anything more than what I am. I know, but I can be here. through the rest of your pregnancy, through the birth if you want me there, through whatever comes after. As your friend, your spiritual advisor, someone who cares deeply about you and this baby, even though it hurts. Especially because it hurts. Love isn't supposed to be easy. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Okay. I'll take what I can get. Even if it's just this Wednesday evenings and honest conversations and someone who actually sees me. He pulled me into a hug then, careful of my belly. I buried my face in his shoulder and breathed in the scent of him, soap and incense and something uniquely Christian. We're going to be okay, he murmured into my ear. All three of us. This baby is going to be healthy and beautiful and so loved. Promise? I promise. I've been praying for it every single day. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the empty church, both of us knowing this was as close as we'd ever get to being together. At 38 weeks, my water broke. It was 2 a.m, and Marcus was out of town for some conference he'd scheduled months ago, convinced the baby wouldn't come early. I called him first, then my mother, then 911. But the person I wanted most wasn't someone I could call. The labor was too fast. By the time I got to the hospital, I was already 6 centimeters dilated. Marcus was on a plane, racing to get back. My mother was stuck in traffic. I was alone. They wheeled me into a delivery room, and the pain was overwhelming, not just physical, but emotional. This was the moment I dreamed of for 5 years, and I was facing it by myself. Do you have anyone we can call? A nurse asked gently. A friend who could be here. I thought of Christian. Imagined him here, holding my hand, praying me through this. But that was impossible. No, I whispered. No one. The next hours were a blur of pain and pushing and medical staff shouting encouragement. I gripped the bed rails and thought about all those prayers Christian had said for this baby, for this moment. Please let this baby be healthy. Please let them arrive safely. Please. And then, at 6:47 a.m., my daughter was born. They placed her on my chest, tiny and perfect, and screaming with outrage at being forced into the cold world. I looked down at her scrunched up face, her impossibly small fingers, and felt my heart break open in a way I didn't know was possible. Hi, baby girl, I whispered. I've been waiting so long to meet you. She quieted at my voice, her dark eyes trying to focus on my face. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, bursting into the room with flowers and apologies. He held our daughter and cried with joy, and for a moment, we were a family, united by this tiny human we'd created. But even in that moment of triumph, of miracle realized, part of me wished Christian could see her, could hold her. Could know that his prayers had worked. 3 days later, I was home with baby Sophia. Marcus had taken paternity leave. My mother was staying with us to help, and the house was full of visitors bringing meals and gifts and congratulations. But I'd never felt more alone. Everyone wanted to hold the baby. No one asked how I was doing beyond the physical recovery. Marcus was attentive to Sophia, but distant from me, like we'd accomplished our mission of creating a child. And now we could go back to being polite strangers. On Sophia's 5th day of life, while Marcus was napping and my mother was out shopping, I did something I shouldn't have. I texted Christian. She's here. Sophia rose, born February 14th, healthy and perfect. His response came immediately. That's wonderful news. I've been praying for you both. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed, grateful, alone. A long pause. Then, do you need me to visit, to do a blessing? I stared at that message for a long time. Inviting him into my home, into this new life, felt like crossing yet another line. But I wanted him there so badly it hurt. Yes, please. He came that evening, after Marcus had left to pick up my mother from the store. I answered the door with Sophia in my arms, and the look on Christian's face when he saw her made my breath catch. Adriana, he breathed. She's beautiful. Do you want to hold her? He hesitated, then nodded. I transferred Sophia into his arms, and he cradled her with surprising natural ease. Hi, little one, he murmured. I've been praying for you since before you existed. Did you know that? Sophia yawned, perfectly content in his arms, and I watched Christian fall in love with my daughter right before my eyes. She likes you, I said softly. I like her too. He looked up at me, eyes shining. She's a miracle, Adriana. A genuine miracle. Your miracle? Ours, he corrected again, just like he had months ago. We sat on the couch, Christian holding Sophia while I watched, and it felt so right, it hurt. This should have been Marcus sitting here with our daughter. But Marcus was out running errands, treating fatherhood like another task to accomplish. Christian was here because he wanted to be. Because he loved this baby just as much as I did, even though she wasn't his. I should do the blessing, he finally said. He performed a simple blessing, touching holy water to Sophia's forehead and praying for her protection, her health, her happiness. His voice was thick with emotion, and when he finished, he carefully handed her back to me. Thank you for letting me meet her, he said. Of course. You're part of her story. Adriana, I meant what I said before. Now that she's here, I think we need to create distance. For everyone's sake. The words I'd been dreading. I know, I whispered. You have your family now. You have what you prayed for. And I can step back knowing that prayer was answered. But I still need you. You think you do. But you don't. You're stronger than you know. What if I don't want to be strong? What if I want to be weak and honest and admit that I'd rather have you here than my own husband? Adriana, I know. I know it's impossible. I know you can't be what I want you to be. But please don't disappear completely. Please don't make me lose you too. He reached out and cupped my face with one hand, his thumb brushing away a tear. I'm not disappearing. I'm just giving you space to build the life you're meant to have. But if you need me, truly need me, I'm a phone call away. Always. Then he did something he'd never done before. He leaned forward and kissed my forehead. Gentle, chaste, but charged with everything we couldn't say. Goodbye, Adriana. Take care of that beautiful girl. And then he left. I sat there holding Sophia, crying quietly, grieving something I'd never actually had. Motherhood was nothing like I'd imagined. Don't get me wrong, I loved Sophia with a fierceness that shocked me. But the reality of caring for an infant while my marriage crumbled was devastating. Marcus tried. He really did. He took his parenting responsibilities seriously, helping with night feedings and diaper changes. But there was no joy in it, no connection between us. We were co-parents, not partners. My mother had gone back home after 6 weeks, leaving me alone with the baby most days while Marcus worked. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and desperately lonely. I thought about texting Christian every single day, but I'd promised to give him space, and he'd made it clear we needed distance. Until one Tuesday afternoon when everything fell apart. Sophia had been crying for 3 hours straight. Nothing worked, not feeding, not changing, not rocking, not singing. Marcus was at work, unreachable in meetings. I was running on 2 hours of sleep, covered in spit-up, and completely at the end of my rope. I called the pediatrician. This is normal, they assured me. Some babies just have fussy periods. I called my mother. You're doing fine, sweetie. All babies cry. I called Marcus. Voicemail. I stood in the nursery, holding my screaming daughter, and felt like I was drowning. Before I could stop myself, I texted Christian. I can't do this. I can't do any of this. He called immediately. Adriana, what's wrong? Everything. She won't stop crying. Marcus is never here. I haven't slept in days. I feel like I'm failing at the one thing I wanted most in the world. Where's Marcus right now? Work. Always work. I'm coming over. Christian, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. 20 minutes later, he was at my door. I answered with Sophia still screaming in my arms, my hair unwashed, wearing clothes I'd slept in. Hey, he said gently, can I come in? I nodded, stepping aside. He took Sophia from my arms without asking and immediately started walking with her, bouncing gently while humming something wordless. Within 5 minutes, her crying had reduced to hiccups. Within 10, she was asleep on his shoulder. I stood there staring at him in amazement. How did you do that? My brother had colic. I used to walk him for hours when I was a teenager. You develop a rhythm. He carefully transferred Sophia to her bassinet, still humming softly. When he turned back to me, his expression was full of concern. When's the last time you ate? I don't know. Breakfast maybe? Go take a shower. I'll make you food. Christian, you don't need to. Adriana, you're exhausted. Let me help, please. I was too tired to argue. I went upstairs, took the longest, hottest shower of my life, and came back down to find Christian had made grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, simple, comforting food. We sat at my kitchen table, and I ate like I was starving. "Thank you," I said when I finally came up for air. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come. You would have survived. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm barely holding it together. Where's Marcus in all this?" "Working, providing, doing his duty." I set down my spoon. "Christian, I think my marriage is over." He was quiet for a long moment. "Are you sure? Or are you just exhausted and overwhelmed?" "Both, but mostly the first thing. We don't love each other anymore. Maybe we never did. We were just two people who wanted a baby and thought that would be enough." "Have you talked to him about this?" "Not directly, but I think he knows. I think we're both just going through the motions until Sophia is older and we can separate without feeling like failures." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" I looked at him directly. "Because you're the person I want to be doing this with. You're the one who shows up when I need help. You're the one who loves Sophia like she's your own. You're—" "Don't," he said, but there was less conviction in his voice than before. "Why not? We're already past the point of pretending, aren't we? Adriana, you just had a baby 3 months ago. You're sleep-deprived and overwhelmed. This isn't the time to make big decisions about your life. I made the big decision 5 years ago when I walked into your church. Everything since then has just been trying to avoid the inevitable." He stood up, pacing to the window. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I want to be with you. I'm saying if you left the priesthood, if we could actually be together, I would choose you. Even knowing how complicated and messy and probably wrong it is." "You don't mean that." "I do. And I think you feel the same way." He turned to face me and I saw the war in his eyes, duty versus desire, vows versus love. "What I feel doesn't matter. I'm a priest. That's not just my job, it's who I am." "Is it? Or is it who you've been hiding behind for the last 9 years? The words hit their mark. I saw him flinch. "That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's honest. You told me once that the vows kept you safe from yourself. But Christian, what if you don't need that safety anymore? What if you're strong enough to be just yourself, not Father Christian, not the broken man who found redemption in the church, just Christian?" "I don't know how to be that person." "Learn. With me. With Sophia. With a life that's messy and complicated but real." He crossed the room and took my hands, pulling me to stand. We were inches apart, and I could see tears in his eyes. "I want that," he whispered. "God, I want that so much it terrifies me." "Then choose it." "Choose us. It's not that simple. Leaving the priesthood takes time. There are processes, procedures. It could take a year or more. And what if I do all that and then we realize this was just a moment of weakness?" "It's been 5 years of moments. That's not weakness. That's love. I need time. To think, to pray, to figure out if I'm ready to let go of everything I've built." "Okay, take time. But Christian, don't take too long, because Sophia and we're not going to wait forever." From upstairs, Sophia started crying again. Christian looked at me, then toward the stairs. "Can I?" he asked. I nodded. We went upstairs together, and he picked up my daughter, cradling her against his chest. She quieted immediately, making those little baby noises that meant contentment. "Hey, little miracle," he murmured. "Your mama's going through a hard time. But she's so strong, and she loves you so much. And so, do I, even though I'm not supposed to, even though it's complicated, I love you both more than anything in this world." Watching him hold my daughter, seeing the love on his face, I knew we'd crossed a line we could never uncross. The only question was, what happened next? Christian left the priesthood. It wasn't immediate. It took 8 months of paperwork, meetings with his bishop, formal processes of laicization. 8 months of him serving at St. Catherine's while privately dismantling the life he'd built there. In the meantime, Marcus and I separated. It was remarkably civil. We both knew it was over, had probably known for years. We worked out custody arrangements for Sophia, divided our assets, started divorce proceedings, and through it all, Christian and I waited. We didn't start a relationship while he was still a priest. We maintained boundaries, kept things appropriate, but we talked every day. He came to visit Sophia weekly, always treating it as pastoral care, even though we both knew it was more. The day his laicization was finalized, he called me from outside the diocese office. "It's done," he said. "I'm not Father Christian anymore. I'm just Christian. How do you feel?" Terrified, relieved, free, uncertain, everything all at once. "Do you regret it?" Not for a second. He came to my apartment that evening. I answered the door holding Sophia, now 9 months old and babbling happily. "Hi," I said. "Hi," he replied. We stood there for a moment, both suddenly awkward. This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. No more barriers, no more impossibilities. Just two people who loved each other, finally free to be together. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked. "Like a real date? With reservations and everything? I'd love that. But Sophia, I know a babysitter. If you trust me, I trust you more than anyone in the world." That night we went to a small Italian restaurant. We held hands across the table. We talked about the future, his new job as a counselor, my going back to work part-time, our plans to eventually move in together. "I want to be a father to Sophia," he said over dessert. "Not biologically, I know, but in every way that matters. If you'll let me." "She already thinks you are. She lights up every time you walk in the room." "And you? What do you want?" I reached across the table and took his hand. "I want this. I want us. I want to build a family with you, messy and complicated and nothing like what I imagined 5 years ago when I walked into that church. But real and honest. And full of love, even though people will talk. Even though our origin story is unconventional. Especially because of that. Because it means we chose this. We both gave up something to be together. That makes it precious." He kissed me then, right there in the restaurant. Our first real kiss. Not the stolen moment in the church, but something honest and open and full of promise. When we got back to my apartment, the babysitter left, and we sat on the couch with Sophia between us. She grabbed both our fingers, pulling them together with her tiny hands. "Look at that," Christian said softly. "She's trying to connect us. She's smarter than both of us," I replied. "She knew what we needed before we did." Christian looked at me over Sophia's head. "Thank you. For what?" "For walking into that church 5 years ago. For being brave enough to ask for a miracle. For giving me a reason to be more than my vows. For showing me that love isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing there is. Thank you for praying for me. For seeing me. For loving us enough to give up everything you knew. Best decision I ever made." Sophia yawned and snuggled against Christian's chest, already half asleep. He stroked her hair gently, and I watched my daughter rest secure in the arms of the man who'd prayed her into existence. People call Sophia my miracle baby. The child I was told I'd never have. The impossible pregnancy that defied medical odds, and she's a miracle. But not for the reasons everyone thinks. The real miracle wasn't the pregnancy. It was finding the person who saw my pain and chose to carry it with me. Who prayed not just for what I wanted, but for what I needed. Who loved me enough to give up everything comfortable and safe for something real. The miracle was Christian. And now, watching him hold our daughter because she is ours in every way that matters, I know that sometimes prayers are answered in the most unexpected, complicated, beautiful ways. We're not perfect. We're still navigating how to be a family, how to explain our story to people who don't understand, how to heal from the pain that brought us together. But we're real. We're honest. And we're whole. Sometimes the miracle you pray for isn't what you expected. Sometimes it's better.